All right, greetings, y'all. Welcome to the class of 2000. Yes, this is my tribute to the class of 2000, part of the broader Walla Walla Catholic Schools category, number 30 even, I believe, on my countdown of the 40 greatest influences of the last 40 years. So, trying to think, I've been trying to remember from my senior year, like what our seating chart was in government. Trying to remember everybody. I want to say in my mind that I had a graduating class of 24, but I'm not totally sure. Maybe the number could be 23, it could be 26. So feel horrible that I'm gonna forget someone and leave someone out. That will probably happen. I'm sure it's already happened already. But again, either I've just honest to God forgotten or don't have any memory, or it's just been clogged by so many memories, or I've intentionally leaving you out of this because I'm gonna give you on spot in the countdown like Casey and Carlos already have been. So, without further ado, let's jump into the class of 2000. So first off, we're gonna go with my boy Von Bear. So I remember specifically, I first met Vaughn playing basketball at the YMCA because he kept talking about his butt bone being broken and how he couldn't practice or run laps and stuff like that. That was my first introduction to Vaughn, even before we were in class together. Then he started going to school, and let's just say, so I did this thing where I would like a girl and say something about it to the whole class, and that's the understatement of the century. But Vaughn copied me. Yeah, he did. This was actually became a pattern because he decided that he was gonna go out and start telling everybody that he liked a girl and get her to not really like him, and it became a thing, right? So for him, it was with Laura Stemmer, and that was like a thing for like 2 weeks in like fifth grade, right? But I was the originator, so he owes me that, but it's okay. Vaughn and he and some other guys kind of, I think Adam kind of lived in the same neighborhood, and we kind of like sat in the same general area of the class as I'm thinking of the seating chart. And Vaughn was the manager of the basketball team for like his entire life. Like I think he started in like the first grade, and did it. That was his thing. Like apparently, washing sweaty jerseys was turned him on. I don't know. No, I'm kidding, Vaughn. But you know, we had a lot of fun because I was one of the people that would film games before I was in high school. So we would all travel to all the away games together. We'd be kind of like the managerial sideshow or whatnot. So that was always fun with Vaughn. Um, Vaughn and I, well, okay. So Vaughn really liked track. Like he enjoyed running, which is something I don't understand to this day at all, but he did it. He enjoys running, which to me is still kind of weird. But at any rate, so there was always like this one last spot. Like we had three guys that are like known to be fast, and then on the 4x4 relay, yeah, we had to have one more person, and it would come down to like me or Vaughn. And it was my junior year. This became like this whole big thing because uh, coach was like, "Hey, we need to have you guys like have a runoff." And here's the thing, like I thought I could beat him. I thought if I really tried and gave it my all, I could probably be able to cross the finish line in practice before he could. I thought I could do that, but I didn't want to have to run any more races for real than I already was, because I was slow and I didn't like running races, especially not running races when I was the slow guy with the three other fast guys. So I tried to decline and be like, no, that's fine. Give Vaughn the honor because he likes running and track and it's like his thing. And it didn't quite pan out good because then coach thought I was crazy and called me an enigma wrapped in a riddle. And then my mom got involved and said, you can't quit. And it became just, frankly, rather ugly. Yeah. So I always admired Vaughn. Like I said, the whole basketball managerial thing, the whole, love and track kind of thing, you know, he like I said, it was kind of weird because he would copy me on the lore thing. He copied me on my Thinks I've Thunk, right? This whole website that I'm doing this on, circa like 95 is when that was invented. Circa like 96, Vaughn was writing his own stuff in his notebooks and trying to pass it off. So imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. The problem is, I'll be honest, Vaughn was probably writing more interesting stuff than I am. I have no idea what Vaughn is doing these days. Last I knew, he was like starting Vaughn Co., which was supposed to be his ice cream vending empire. And he may well be like the 37th richest ice cream mogul in the world by now. I don't know. Haven't really talked to him since I don't even remember when, and that's awful. Says a little something about me, how I don't keep in touch with people that at one point in time I saw every day. So, but Vaughn was always a friend, always a lot of fun to be around, and for that, Vaughn, I really appreciate you. Miss you. Hope you are doing well in your life. All right, and then next we've got Jeff Murray. So I'll be honest, Jeff and I have been going to school since like kindergarten. And I don't think we ever really did anything together, like hung out until like maybe our junior year. Um, yeah, just never. I mean, honestly, I think we were sitting behind each other through most of those years. And I don't know what it was exactly, but I remember very specifically, I think we were running track together, so maybe it was our sophomore year. And he was also kind of going to a different church, like kind of I think like more non-denominational, like a church that plays like rock music with like the slideshow projecting with the lyrics and stuff like that. And they do a lot of jumping up and down and take field trips to see the Audio Adrenaline concert and stuff like that. And he actually got me involved in that, like a youth group and doing stuff. And I don't even know why or how we started hanging out, but it sort of made sense when we think about it. Like we were similar in a lot of ways, both pretty mild mannered guys. We weren't really extreme into anything, but very easygoing. Good guys. And I don't know where he's at now. I think I am like LinkedIn friends with him. I think he's in the Tri-Cities, but I don't know for sure. At any rate, like I said, I think with the religion stuff and the youth group, like that was also I think the time when my dad started to have issues, and I think he really made like a legitimate effort to sort of take me under his wing. The one thing that I do remember about Jeff specifically, and this is kind of weird, but you know, I've done and said things. I talked about the Mr. Simmons and the character assassination and the institution of the Daltosa rule and all of that. So there was one time when I got up and grabbed the mic, and it was kind of more of a serious thing, talking about drunk driving and that kind of stuff at every 15-minute presentation. And he said, yeah, you mean we didn't know what you were going to do. You're so unpredictable. We didn't know if you're going to take your clothes off or what. And I kind of got like a little pissed initially when he said that, because I was thinking like, oh, really? Like, my God, like, what do you think of me? Like, come on, like, naturally, of course, I'm going to be straight and legitimate. But the truth was, the last time I had taken the microphone down on stage, I had taken off my clothes. I mean, it was part of a mock wrestling sketch, so it kind of made sense. Like I had tearaway pants and rrr. But you know, he was communicating to me that I was very unpredictable, and that did put people at a bit of unease. People were somewhat uncomfortable around me. And that was something that I hadn't to that point really considered. I'd always assumed that, hey, everybody knows what's up and what I'm about and what I'm doing, and I'm doing stuff for a reason. And maybe that reason was always clear to me, but my PR department wasn't doing a very good job of explaining that to the rest of the world. And Jeff was the person that really made me stop in my life and reconsider that. And it's a good thing he did, because as I've moved forward in life, I've had to realize, yeah, I'm not real good at explaining things up front, and people don't necessarily know what I'm talking about. My wife reinforces this for me on a daily basis. So, Jeff Murray, thank you so much for having the guts and the courage to actually set me straight and help me, become a better person. Next person in my class was Liz Williams. I have to be honest, Liz is probably the person in my class that I spent the least amount of time with. I had the least interaction, and I don't really know why. Like, she was, nice enough. I thought I was nice enough. We just didn't really travel in similar circles. I remember very specifically one time I came back from college and I ran into her somewhere, and I totally like ghosted her, just pretended that, because I didn't even know, I didn't have a common reference point of anything. Yeah, I've been that kind of guy, and that's something I've had to really think about and consider. So if nothing else, she might remember me for something. Probably not anything good, but hey, she, like I said, very nice, very kind, very good person. So she might have good memories of me. I just have not much else to share about that. Terrible, I know. But I do remember her, because I do remember us being in study groups and stuff like that together. But as far as Liz and I, like, hanging out or working on a specific project together, I just don't think it ever happened. As bizarre as that sounds, I'm probably going to say that like 3 or 4 times before I get to the end of this list. So hang in there. Next person on my list is Aaron McGuire. So Aaron, I remember, the thing I remember most about Aaron is I was in Spanish class. And it was, right before class was starting, I was sitting there and she like asked me a question or something like, what'd you do this weekend? And I was sort of like, nothing, just hung out, and, went back to minding my own business. And she sort of turned and got a little terse with me and was like, oh my God, like every day in class I sit here and try and talk to you and you give me nothing, nothing. That's probably a really bad impression of Erin, because she really was always very sweet. But again, one of those people that really kind of encouraged me to kind of come out of my shell. I always suspected when people did that they were like, that's because you haven't seen me come out of my shell. You don't know what you're in for. And now maybe this whole 40 for 40 is what you get when I come out of my shell, and people will be saying, okay, you can go back in, or you should have pulled this out 20 years ago, but it's a little late. Anyways, I'm a late bloomer. But Aaron is someone that I really appreciated as time went on. And I remember little known facts. So at our prom, senior prom, she was the only girl that I danced with. I got offers from other people, but she was the only one I actually took up, because I'd gotten to a point where I was thinking, you know what? If I was going to ask someone to the prom, she would probably be the person that would. But I think she went with it's probably Matt or something. Anyways, because they were always really good friends. But yeah, I always kind of wondered, like, hey, maybe if I had my eyes open or was more aware, maybe, she and I could have been, better friends, or maybe at some point even more than friends. I doubt it, because, like I said, it's family, not great for a lot of hookups, but they did happen. Not to me, obviously. But yes, Erin, man, I don't know. I have memories associated with her and watching The Matrix. It's kind of fuzzy, but again, The Matrix. Maybe that's just a glitch in the Matrix that I remember watching the Matrix with Aaron. But I remember she went. I think she ended up going to the University of Portland because I think I ended up visiting her there one time for some reason. I don't know. It's 20 years ago. Give me a break. But Aaron, you were always a sweetheart, and you deserve better from me. I apologize. Thank you. Next person on my list is Jenny Cazell. Okay, so after piggybacking off of what I kind of said with Aaron, maybe if I was paying more attention, I did have the thought at one point in high school when I was just kind of thinking in my head, like, oh, well, if everybody in the school had to sort of pair up, like, what would the natural kind of like groupings of just people that seemed like they might be a good fit? And honestly, when I was like, well, who would be a good fit with me? The thought that I had was, hey, me and Jenny might actually have some commonality here because, for one thing, she would often rock the mid 90s Grant Hill Detroit Pistons in like the teal-y color with like the horse head. Like, yeah, and I would often rock the black hat cocked to the side. That was also the Pistons horse head logo. So she's a basketball fan. She was into sports. She was intelligent. Had probably similar interests as far as academic and sports and the overlap and stuff of that. She has, I believe, gone on. Her plan was always to go into athletic training, and because she was very goal oriented and determined, I am sure that's exactly what she has done. So when I kind of think about it, like that does seem like it would have made some sense, and I kind of knew that there at the time. That was a thought I had. It was kind of a fleeting thought, and I never did anything about it or expressed it because I had hormones and other people that I was paying way more attention to, and that's just kind of the way it goes. But Jenny, wherever she is, I'm sure she is doing fabulously. Again, haven't talked to her, I don't think, since graduation. Not gonna quite put the one that got away because that's not there. But if I were going back and we're transporting the like practicality of a 30-something-year-old person into a 15-year-old, yeah, that's not gonna really happen. But if it could happen, I probably would have at least paid a lot more attention and given a lot more attention to Jenny Cassell, and Jenny deserved that attention. I will say one story that stands out, and Jenny, from the bottom of my heart, I never meant any sort of offense, but I don't think I've ever actually addressed this with you. So we're in religion class because that's something that happens at Catholic schools, and the question posed by the teacher was something along the lines of, how does someone being more or less religious influence whether you would want to date them or something like that? And me being me, I had worked out in my head this whole spiel about, oh, well, you don't want to date a religious girl because, they're going to be, comparing you to Jesus, and it's like, they might become a nun, and then they'd be like married to Jesus, and it's like, well, Jesus, how do I compete with Jesus? And I had this whole bit worked out, and I didn't get anywhere in it because apparently I led with, well, I mean, you're not going to want to like marry a nun. And right there, I don't know what it was, but every single girl turned on me, and I guess now I sort of get it because that's not a great way to lead. But there was an implication that I was talking about Jenny, and I don't understand where it came from. I had no idea that she was religious. Like I said, unfortunately, she wasn't someone that I talked to. We didn't go in the same circles. We didn't even live in the same town. We didn't even live in the same state. She lived in Oregon. She was from Freewater, maybe Milton, and they kind of put those two together. But yeah, so I remember her being greatly offended and making the argument, I don't want to be a nun, I want to be an athletic trainer. And every other girl in the class kind of came to her defense. And I remember just kind of having like this expression on my face, like, what is going on? I haven't even gotten to my Jesus punchline yet. Like, how can you be? And then the class deteriorated into a battle of the sexes. And then Casey, who, decided to try and help me out by saying, no, 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 here, y'all. See, the thing is, see, a dude is going to want to have sex. And then every girl turns and says, yeah, that's what Tony just said. And I'm like, I didn't even say the word. Like, I was 15 in high school. I wouldn't ever say the word sex in a religion class out loud. Ah, you know, but Casey, being who he was then able to, say like, well, I like to go shopping, and like, oh, Casey, oh, everybody, all the girls love Casey because he likes to go shopping, and everyone hates Tony because he thinks they're going to be nuns. Anyways, that was what high school was like for me. But misunderstanding, Jenny. I wasn't even thinking of you. I was thinking of like hypothetical super religious person. I literally, I don't know how I can say this more. Like, I never expected any of the girls that I went to school with were ever going to be nuns. And maybe some of them are now, and I don't even know. Shows what a judge of character I am. But anyway, from the bottom of my heart, Jenny, you deserve better from me. And knowing what a great person you are, I am sure you have gotten it at this point in your life. All right. So next person on my list, because I want to steer clear of that drama very quickly, the aforementioned Laura Stemmer, who was like the object of Vaughn's affection in like 5th grade. So, if I remember correctly, I think Laura was actually like kind of my neighbor. Like, I think she just lived up the street from me a little bit. At least I can remember walking down the street and having her parents wave at me and stuff like that. There was the Stemmer cabin, which again was a place kind of like the Smiths that I didn't ever actually go to until after graduation. And then I went like once, and then I went to college and never spoken to people again for 20 years. But I always kind of liked Laura, at least in that I thought she was pretty cool. Again, I didn't really talk to girls much, period. But Laura was a little more easy to talk to than other people because I don't know. Like, maybe it's because I think we went to church together. I don't know. But yeah, not quite as intimidated. Or maybe it's because I was like, oh, well, that's Vaughn's woman. And no, not really, because they were never really a thing. But maybe that took the pressure off. I don't know. But I always remember good stuff being associated with Laura. I don't know. I think there was kind of a group that was like Laura and Aaron and some people like, I think we kind of hung out watching like, Pride and Prejudice, horrible cinematography renditions that were supposedly more accurate to the book because we didn't want to read the book. I don't know. But Laura Stemmer. Oh, I remember Sean Sung, who I'm not, yeah, he was an exchange student from Korea. I remember the way he would say, Laura Steamer, and I shouldn't be mocking other races. That's not good of me. But yeah, Laura Stemmer, I appreciate you and your family. And I don't know how I didn't get invited to the cabin more often, but yeah, that's probably was for the best. So, because I probably would have gotten poison ivy in the dark or something like that. So, Laura, I appreciate you. Thank you. All right. Next on my list of the class of 2000 is my boy Tim Roeder, or Timothy the Raider Hallmark, as he's known in German folklore. That was one of my Thinks I've Thunk, like number 106, circa 1996. Tim, here's the funny thing I remember about Tim. In like 6th grade, I swear, Tim was like a foot taller than everybody else. But he like never grew again. And, I think I'm a good like 3 or 4 inches taller than him present day. But then again, I don't know because I haven't really seen him in 20 years. He has seen my mom and commented like, hey, give Tony my number and I should contact him. And I never actually have, which is my bad. But again, I'm making a post on my blog that only my grandma reads and thinking that anyone is from the class is going to see this. So I'm a little nutty in my thought process here to begin with anyway. But Tim and I were actually pretty close because we lived in the same general neighborhood and we get together to play basketball over in the school by him, which was, why am I blanking on the name of that school? Like my grandma went to it. It's right there. Anyways, not Edison, the other one. Anyways, Tim and I were actually pretty close. And I mean, I don't want to throw him under the bus a little bit, but yeah, we kind of had that wearing glasses, nerdy white boy vibe a little bit. But we bonded over that. And like I said, we were pretty tight. He and the next guy on the list, Brian, would kind of hang out a lot, especially when we became seniors and we go off. He worked at Arby's, so we would go to Arby's and get uh, not free food, but probably discounted food a lot. I remember he and I and another guy coming up here soon, Drew, on the countdown. So it's the senior project, right? And at some point in high school, like civics teacher is going to say, "All right, you're gonna pair up and become a couple and learn, explore like budgeting and childcare and what it's like to be a family, and all of these type of economic decisions and domestic life decisions, and how does this go?" Well, I don't know if it's just the numbers and how they played out, but me, Tim, and Drew got put together to work as roommates on a project. Uh, I don't know, like Bert, Ernie, and Grover moves in. I don't know. This was weird. But I remember Tim and I working on this project together, and so what we decided to do was because Tim worked at Arby's and Drew worked at McDonald's, we just said, hey, we're just gonna get free food from where we work, and that was able to like put X amount of dollars into our budget, and we were able to get kind of creative with the accounting on that. Well, also because I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do, I don't know how I'm gonna make this stand out because it's not like other people that are like boy and girl can talk about, oh, well, this was our wedding in the Bahamas and whatever to have an intro. So I just made the whole thing rhyme. And the teacher actually says like, oh, I've never had one of these turned in 20 years of teaching written in poetry. And I was like, wow, I thought I was just being lame, but you made it poetry. So me and Tim worked together on that, and that was pretty cool. Drew's contribution was a little different, and I'll get to him in a minute. Man, Tim and I, again, don't want to throw him under the bus, but I have so many memories of him and I kind of commiserating about women or girls or the lack thereof, and hanging out and sharing sob stories a little bit. Tim was always a friend. He never treated me. I can't even think of one time when Tim got on my case. Like even, I tended to have most of my relationships were like joking, teasing, mocking. Like if you had the opportunity to take a shot at your best friend, well, you took it. But not with Tim. Tim, it was always, I mean, even when we sort of took shots at each other, they weren't harsh shots. Always very friendly, always very, very, having each other's best interests, and being sensitive to that, and like a totally nonsensical and non-sensitive way. Really, actually, pretty cool. Tim was a much better friend than I probably gave him credit for, and honestly, the reason why is because he didn't play basketball on the school team. That was really the main difference, is because he and I would play, and then it evolved to where I was always on the team and working to try and become a college athlete, which was a pipe dream. And he was just had the mindset of, okay, time to get growing up and moving forward with life. And we were both kind of struggling with that transition together. And I appreciated having him there, and I think he appreciated having me there too. And so I feel bad now to think that, hey, maybe we could be doing the same thing for each other as adults that we did as kids, because we could still be friends. even, now on the internet. Like, he's all over Facebook, and I never really say anything to him. Even now, people from the class of 2000 are shaping and influencing me. Thank you, Tim. So like I said, with Tim, there was also Brian Rhodes, who the three of us kind of hung out a lot together. And Brian Rhodes is actually one of my oldest friends, because like I had mentioned when I was talking about Keith Michaels in the class of 99, Keith and I in kindergarten, when I was in the class of 99 still, would actually walk over to Brian Rhodes' house, and his mom would watch us until our parents picked us up. So me and Brian, have been friends, for longer than most of the people on this countdown. And we kind of like fell out of touch for a while until like our senior year. And like I said, he and Tim and I started kind of hanging out. We would do lunch together most days and stuff like that. I can also remember like randomly me and Brian would sort of like start hanging out. And then, like we get together and, I'd go over to his house, or he'd come over to my house for the weekend or something like that. And then, I don't know, then we'd go back to sort of not crossing paths. I don't know if we just weren't in all the same class. I feel like we were. Brian, again, I've talked a couple of times about how my goal was to make it through English classes without ever actually reading a literary text. Brian seemed to like take that to the extreme. Like, I swear he did his homework, you know, in like 5 minutes at either the beginning or end of class. Never seemed to study, never seemed to give any type of effort whatsoever, and somehow still coasted with about the same grades that I did, so like a B plus average, sometimes better, sometimes worse, but he didn't seem to care. Brian is just really like, and even like I haven't talked to him in like 20 years again, but even from when like I've seen him on Facebook and whatnot, like he's just so natural and easygoing and all shucks, like things are gonna be fine. And he just keeps putting one foot in front of the other, and bit by bit, things just seem to go his way. I think Brian is just lucky, but like, just a right amount of luck. Like I haven't heard of him like winning the lottery or something like that. Maybe he has. But he's just, and it's not even really luck. It's just he like paces himself, and it's kind of in a dramatic way, and it's not the way you would recommend. But he certainly had sex. He certainly had success. He probably had sex too, because he did have a girlfriend that I think he worked with at Iceberg. Yeah, I mean, I think she was Adventist, so but totally possible he was having sex in high school. Just throwing that out there. It's been 20 years. Anyways, Brian was able to pace himself and be successful really with a minimum of effort. Like his efficiency is just off the charts. And I always admired that in him. But more importantly, because he was so efficient, he was like jubilant and joyful, low key. Like really, like I talked before about Carlos being kind of like just this, ball of energy that would just kind of like have these eruptions. Brian was kind of the opposite. Like he wouldn't really have eruptions, but he was like at like a smiley level 10 most of the time, but low key. So I wish everyone could be a little bit more like Brian, at least on command, right? When you needed it, you could go into Brian mode. But I suspect that Brian mode is sort of something that you can't turn on and off. But I wish they could. And because of that wish, Brian will always be someone that I look up to and appreciate. Thank you, Brian. All right, so now that I had the pairing with me, Brian, and Tim, now I can go back to me, Tim, and my boy Andrew Underwood. So like I said, Drew was in the group with me and Tim, and we had our Life of Three Men class project. And like I said, me and Tim kind of worked on it, and ran the numbers and wrote the poetry right for it. Drew did nothing. I'm just gonna throw it out there, and he knew it because when we turned in the project, and we all got an A. I think it was A. It was like close to an A minus, but it was like 93.5%, so we called it an A. And that was what he needed to pass and graduate. Like, he was very thankful, very appreciative. Drew is kind of interesting because he came into our class about seventh grade. And when he first came in, he and I were actually pretty cool. He was a new kid, so I think he was kind of feeling his way out. And I'm a nice guy and try to be accommodating and there for the new kids and trying to make new friends always. And so we did that. But then, and Drew, he's absolutely right because he hit this right on the head. And what happened is, some point in eighth grade, he actually comes up to me and he said something along the lines of, "Dude, Tony, what is with you? Like, when I first met you, you were like this cool guy, and now it's like you want to kill yourself." I'm pretty sure that's the exact quote. And yeah, I don't know what quite happened between, sometime in seventh grade and sometime in eighth grade. I don't know. I've tried to look at it before, and coming up on my 40th birthday, this is a time for reflection about that kind of things. Still don't know. But yeah, something kind of happened. Honestly, I think it was just that other people started to grow up, right? You're kind of moving into like 14, 15 years old, and you start looking towards like driving and getting a job and drinking and partying and stuff like that. And the rest of the world was doing that, and I wasn't. For whatever reason, whether you want to say I'm a late bloomer, I'm slow, a wimp, whatever it was, like, I was still sort of stuck in middle school mode, and everything around me was changing, and I was like, what the hell's going on? I'd also say that, there's part of everybody else started probably growing and developing and hitting your later stages of puberty, and I probably was too. The difference was other people were getting muscles from it, and, well, I mean, I'm the same size now as I was when I was a freshman, so, go figure. But yeah, Drew was the one that kind of first recognized that, and really is a credit to him that he actually called me out on it. Because at the time, I actually took it as a compliment, because I was like, "Really? You thought I was a really cool guy last year? All right." Like, and so maybe that speaks to how I actually was feeling. I don't ever think I was feeling suicidal, but certainly, middle school is not always, probably no one's favorite time in life. And I was probably having some of that time there too. And Drew hit it right on the head. So haven't in the next preceding 30 years figured anything out, but Drew was right there. And like I said in the post about Carlos, he and Carlos kind of like spawned this thing. And, me and Carlos never became a crack, like, Comedy Central comedy duo, because that's what he and Drew was. Like, Drew sort of like snuck in there and snatched up and took my place, and was actually much better at that than I ever would have been. So, from that standpoint, Drew was kind of my replacement in a way. So he kind of like filled a little bit of a void that I think I would have filled otherwise. But maybe that was for the best, because it was probably a better situation for him, and it allowed me to kind of be in my own world a little bit, and that's how Thinks I've Thunk and all that started to develop. But he also makes a good point that me being a little more assertive, a little more confident, and he wasn't the only person that thought this way, but literally, because he was saying this in eighth grade, he was the first person to really call me out on it. And should have listened to him more at the time. Maybe things would be different. I don't know, for better or for worse. But Drew was a friend enough and had the balls enough and cared about me enough to call me out on that, and I appreciate that about him. Thank you, Drew. I probably can't see this at all, but let's see, like right here, this is actually the paper. I got rid of most of my stuff from high school, but The Life of Three Men, right? And you can see here, the grade on that was like, I don't know. Oops, my green screen stuff is screwing that up, but 137 out of 150. So, you can do the math on that, whatever that percentage is. That's the grade I got Drew on his final project to help him to pass government class so he could graduate with us. You're welcome, Drew. All right, so the next person on my list of the class of 2000, which I graduated with, is Bernadette Davis. I don't even know where to begin, but I know where to end, so I'm just going to make this short and sweet. For my freshman English class, I composed a poem for my anthology, An Old Salty Dog's Excuse for Poetry. Nice little green screen effect there for you. But I composed a poem about Bernadette, and it's one of the few things that survives my, cleaning out my closet. All the Things I've Thunk books, all my yearbooks, trashed 10 years ago. But this somehow survived. So I'm going to read for you the poem I wrote entitled Everybody's Favorite Person. Everybody's favorite person. Bernadette, I won a Corvette. I whine like a mule, over lamb chops I drool. I've been banned from the public pool. I'm large and I love it. Bernadette, I'm a brunette. I wish I were blonde. Of ice cream I'm fond. I want James Bond on video cassette. And if you don't like me, shove it. I don't know. I composed that poem. I read it aloud in class. So this is not the first time most of you that will ever see this video will be hearing this poem. And she did not kill me. She actually, I think, appreciated the attention and certainly did not mind the publicity. So there you have it, Bernadette, reviving the glory of your past. You're welcome, and thank you. All right, next on the class of 2000 is Laura Butchkowski. So Laura, I could probably categorize her with some of the other people I've mentioned so far, like Aaron and the other Laura Stemmer, as people that probably were going out of their way to be nice to me, and I was oblivious for most of the time I was in school with them. And again, for that, I am very sorry. I remember two things about Laura. One is that there was some sort of weird thing where I think somebody was trying to get me to ask her to a dance or something. And so I was like, all right, well, I don't know if I'm going, but whatever. So I called her up and I was like, hey, if you want to go, I will go with you. Like, we can do this. If this is what you would like to do, I have no problem. I think it would be fun. We can make it happen. And she's like, so you want to go? But what I was doing is I was like making a point of not asking her out, but offering to go with her, which is kind of a jerk move. But at the same time, she didn't take it as a jerk move. She actually took it on herself. And it's like, well, I would feel bad because I don't want to make you go. But it's clear she obviously wanted to date because it's a dance and whatnot. And she let me off the hook, and she ended up having no problem finding another date with someone who would actually had the nerve to legitimately ask her for real. So shame on me and good for her. But that's the first thing that I kind of remember that stands out is that was kind of a dick move, but it was like with the sort of the right intention. Anyways, she handled that remarkably well, and as I think back on it, I think, wow, she probably should have torn me a new one, and it should have been, World War III about that, and should have ruined my reputation. And she didn't. She was actually concerned about me and my feelings, and that kind of speaks out to what kind of a person she is. She also kind of I don't know, ran a little bit of PR for me at one point. I think it was after the aforementioned when Brian bailed or didn't come to school on the day of Mrs. Baldwin's play. And I had to step in and be the king and just, bark out orders and act goofy in front of a bunch of kindergartners. But she kind of started singing my praises a little bit and trying to convince all of the other jerks that I should be nice. They should be nicer to people like Tony does, which, you know, did not really put me on the spot a little bit and put me in a little bit of an awkward situation, and because I don't do well with compliments. But two situations that I can remember where she was, one, being very kind to me and taking responsibility and thinking of my feelings when I could actually just been actually super awkward and rude and put her in a difficult situation. And two, she was actually going out of the way to espouse my virtue and, you know, try to make me an example that other people should actually aspire to. I'm not sure when else that has happened in my life. I mean, my wife loves me, and she would probably sing my praises if you know, you ask her. But she would probably also qualify all of that praise as well. Here, I had someone who I apparently would not even give the time of day to in class, and was actively trying to, you know, get other people to be more like Tony. You know, WWTD. You know, why would Tony Deltosa? I don't know. Why would Tony Deltosa? I don't know. It's not. Forget about the acronym. Anyways, the other thing that I remember about Laura, last time I saw her, I think was at Portland, because I think she was working at like Sephora or something like that in the mall, and the mall that I think my wife also worked at, and so I was there all the time. That was the last time I saw her, but oddly enough, her father and I actually worked together for about 3 or 4 years at the local county mental health in Walla Walla. So that's a little bit of a trip to have someone that you were like, oh yes, sir, Mr. Butchkowski, and now we were sort of coworkers and passed in the hall, and yeah, it was. I think he would still call me Mr. Deltoso, which is a little weird, but anyways, uh, yeah. So apparently Laura was not ranting and raving about what a dick that Tony character is to her dad, because, you know, he has fond memories and treated me with respect and seemed to think I was a good guy in high school. So for that, Laura, I really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, next on the class of 2000 is Nick Weiss. So Nick is one of those guys that was kind of in the class like in grade school for a while, and then he went to public school and then came back, I think, our junior year of high school, something like that. All right, so the thing I got to tell you about Nick Weiss is back in grade school, like he was all about Elvis. I, I mean, this is like, you know, 1989, and he's all about Elvis. Like he made Elvis cool again, or at least he thought Elvis was cool. I don't know. I mean, I guess Elvis is, you know, timeless classic at this point, but still, like Elvis in the 80s, that was Nick's thing. Or, I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. Uh, wasn't his only thing though, because he and I shared sort of an affinity for, I don't know what to call it. I'm gonna go with Disney Channel music, because back then, like, you know, your New Kids on the Block, the Party, probably the Jets, you know, whatever, like something went back when the Disney Channel was like a pay-per-view kind of thing, and there would be the free weekend preview, right? So everybody gets Disney Channel for a weekend, and you know, the idea is Alan Thicke or Marky Post or somebody. That's right, I remember Alan Thicke and Marky Post were the people that come on and talk about, and you can have the Disney Channel in your home 24/7 for a low monthly payment, and, you know, bringing quality Disney family programming into your home every night and every morning. Um, yeah, so that would happen, and, you know, I would watch that and be like, hey, I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm watching the Disney Channel. Um, you know, because I'm watching it. That's what you did. Like, oh, it was Disney Channel. We have to watch it every day and suck up because there wasn't like all the Disney DVD and whatnot. It was like, oh my God, this will be the first time in my life that I'm gonna be able to watch the Jungle Book not in a theater, you know, and it was kind of a big deal. But yeah, like the party, you know, I think some of the Bobby Brown probably fit into that category. You know, this was before like the Britney and the Christina and the Justin, all that. This was, you know, still a good probably 5 years before it hit that level. So he and I remember, I think in music class, we like danced or performed to some of this music or whatnot. So we kind of had that going for us. But again, I was me, and I was, like I said, aspiring to be Brainy Smurf on the one hand, and then aspiring to be poor man's Nick Weiss on the other end. And I guess this is what you come up with when you get there. I don't know. Anyways, like I said, he moved on, went to public schools for a while, and you know whatever did his thing, because before he was Nick, and you know whatever he's, I think his grandma or grandpa lived like up the street from my grandma and grandpa, and so sometimes we'd cross paths hanging out in that neighborhood. But ultimately, he went to other schools and had his own misadventures, and kind of came back with like this like weird, almost like criminal thug reputation that sort of preceded him. And I honestly don't know if it was legit or more just reputation, or if it was like minor things that just got made a big deal about, because I believe his dad worked for like juvenile hall as a probation officer or something like that. So maybe that was like a thing and whatnot. But definitely when he came back, he sort of had a reputation that preceded him. And I remember, I think I was giving him a ride home, and I was kind of like asking him, like, so, like, how much shit have you been in, like, in the last year? Like, what's going on? Like, what's, like, it's back, and you're like, ooh, like, you know, like, dark, trippy Nick Weiss. And he didn't really give me a straight answer. He was just kind of like, yeah, I've been in a lot of shit. Didn't want to get into it. I respected that. But I've always been curious. And, but it, again, and again, this is sort of sounding like it's a slight, but it's absolutely not at all. Because there's a couple of people in my lifetime that I've learned from and saying like, hey, I'm aspiring to be like them. But if you're going through some types of issues, if you're getting yourself into trouble, if you're having issues, whether that's drugs or crime or whatnot, something in your life is not right. You're struggling with something on the inside. And for me to be aspiring to be like someone like that taught me that no one is perfect, and you're always going to have, and even the people that I look at and would think, wow, they have everything going for them, they're really cool, they have their own issues. Nobody is free. So Nick was definitely another one of those guys that encouraged me to stand up for myself, to be me. And again, kind of like Drew, didn't listen to him enough. Should have, still should. And so maybe saying this now is going to remind me and inspire me in the next 40 years of my life, should I live that long. So Nick, for that, I appreciate you. Thank you. Next on my list of the class of 2000 is Tammy Baldwin. So Tammy is probably the person that I have had the least amount of relationship with. Uh, that relationship would probably be zilch if not for the fact that she and Casey were together for a while. And, you know, given that I was close friends with Casey, I probably heard more about her than I probably wanted or needed to know. And because of that, because she was with him, I would probably interacted with her even more than I normally ever would have. Not to say that I wouldn't want to, or that, but it probably means that she probably wouldn't have wanted to. I don't know about that. Anyways, she came into our class probably, I want to say like halfway through our junior year, and then continued and graduated with us as a senior. I remember correctly, I think her stepdad was whatever, Clark Covey something, and he like ran Homestead, which was my grandmother's all-time favorite restaurant. So we would eat there all the time. That's where my grandma would always take us. Special occasion, grandma take us to the Homestead. So that was kind of cool because she like worked there at the time, and had her waitress friends and whatnot. So then me and Casey started going there, uh, for him to see his girlfriend. But food was always excellent, so that was actually a good time in my life. Not a whole lot else that like connected us, other than Casey, right? So Casey would often tell me, like, hey, he'd be like down on the football field and he'd like wave to the stands and call me and say like, hey, I need you to go talk to Tammy and tell her everything I do tonight on the field, I do for you, because he's quoting Bryan Adams songs. And not to laugh at Bryan Adams songs, because that was my wedding song, first dance song for me and my wife. So hey, I respect the Canadian Bruce Springsteen. But at any rate, Tam, I'm laughing at that. I stole that joke from How I Met Your Mother. It's Canadian jokes. Anyways, so I would go to deliver that message to Tammy, and there was like always this look in terror in her eyes, like, "Oh my God, he's gonna break up with me!" And I was like, "No, he's not breaking. He's trying to dedicate his performance in this high school playoff game to your honor, and when he scores 3 touchdowns, all of those touchdowns are yours, Tammy." And I was in that position a lot. That was pretty much the extent of our socialization, except, and this was just by dumb luck that I was going through the folder that I found Bernadette's poem in, and I found this is actually on a progress report that has my grades from some point. So September, probably can't see any of this, but this is a progress report. But I wrote some sort of a poem on here that appears to be about Tammy, and I haven't actually read it, so I'm going to be reading this sight unseen to you guys. We'll see what I put down. So I've got, Tammy sits next to me. I stole her chair, so it's plain to see why she gave me my pubic hair. Huh. Carlos has a date for her. His name is Mini-Me, Carlos did. His real name is David, but that doesn't matter because his pants will splatter when David tries to rape her. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that I went here on a progress report. So she asked me for some paper. And what did she write to Serena on that paper of mine? She commented on her nice behind. Ha! That means ass if you don't cuss. That means butt, don't make a fuss. My grade is higher, but Tammy is flyer. I'm still the bomb. Tammy's going to the prom, but I'm still drumming in a band because Tammy won't go to homecoming with me on her right hand. So I'll ask Serena or Aaron or Butchkowski because they will go with Tony and won't try to get at his mini-me. And for your information, it's not mini at all. Wow. So that's the type of poetic inspiration that Tammy gave me sitting in a class bored out of my mind at some point. And for that, Tammy Baldwin, I thank you and appreciate it. Okay, moving on from Tammy, and I will promise I will not be reading any more poetry. I swear. So, next person on my list of class of 2000 is Christian Schmidt. Yes, the same Christian that I referenced way back when I talked about Mrs. Brand and the urban legend of how she threw his desk across the classroom. Maybe it wasn't throwing the desk. Maybe she threw him across the classroom because his desk was always a mess. Now I don't know, but that's how urban legends grow and become, legendary, I guess. So, Christian, man, Christian, you know, some people kind of fall into groups. And, I don't know, maybe he did, but I can't really think of like people that I really associate Christian with being. He always struck me as sort of his own man, and that was kind of the way that I kind of thought of myself. So I always felt we had a little solidarity in that regard. I always kind of admired him in that, because while I kind of did my own thing sort of out of like, because I felt awkward and whatnot, he basically just owned himself for who he was and didn't have a whole lot of shame about it, at least that I was aware of. He and I were pretty tight on sort of it was kind of a coming and going kind of thing. There were times when we would, be hanging out and doing things together and going to each other's houses and whatnot. And there were times when it was like, hey, we're in class together today, but I haven't really talked to you in months. Things that I remember specifically about him. So one thing was, and I don't know why this strikes me, but at one point he like dyed his hair red, and it was the 90s, so he did one of those cuts where it was like long and shaved on the underneath, but long and like parted down the middle. That whole kind of like grunge skater this is mid 90s type thing. And then he dyed his hair red when he did it. And I don't know, that sort of became like his signature look for a while until he got into high school. And as a kid, he had been, I'm going to use the word pudgy. I'm sorry, I don't mean, like, but then he started becoming a football player, and he was in the weight room all the time. And man, like Adonis might be too strong of a word, but I mean, he put a lot of guys to shame. And particularly, I mean, like everybody puts me to shame, but I was impressed. And so, I think about when I think of examples that I've seen in my life of someone that was able to, in a fairly short amount of time, really make a pretty dramatic transformation, be it, physical, personality, what he kind of did the works, right? Uh, so I've always kind of admired Christian about that. Again, I haven't spoken with him in 20 years. I don't know what's going on. The last time I did talk to him, I was talking about how there were rumors about him having written a novel or something. I want to say I heard rumors about him battling like lymphoma or something like that, and I actually have no idea. I remember going to Christian's birthday party when I was like 11 or 12, because it was like one of those like big overnights where he invited like everybody from class, like everyone, and then people from other classes and like then some. So it was like one of those giant sleepovers. Man, I don't know how parents ever like. I have like a 6-year-old, and I think like, man, I'm like terrified to have him like one other kid in like how like people actually had like 12, 15, you know, elementary school kids in their house overnight, having to corral all of that. It's insane. So kudos to Christian and his parents. Um, Christian and I actually, I think, because we kind of had that solidarity and hey, we were our own people, we were original, we tried to stay true to ourselves. Like I said, kind of that mutual respect. And I remember specifically, like towards graduation, him and I talking, and I think he might have even written it in my yearbook or something. He pointed out that just that like, hey, we've both grown and changed a lot over the last 4 years, and I definitely recognized that and validated that in him, and I really appreciated that he recognized and validated that in me. And so I think me and Christian always kind of had that bond. And so, just him being a living example of what you can do with yourself and with your life, and being able to change. And I'm a coach and counselor, so you know buzzwords like transformation. He was really a perfect example of that, and it was all motivated internally. There wasn't really, I think, a lot of external pressure on him. Like, he was his own man, and he got to determine what that man was going to be like, and he went out and he made that happen. And so for me, sitting where I am in life and doing what I do, that's a lesson that I really take heed to. So Christian, thank you for that. I appreciate you. All right. Next on my countdown of the class of 2000 is my boy Nathan Ray. Ray spelled R-E-A, Ray. So again, I mentioned with Tyler Baffney that he and I are somehow related. We're like fourth cousins, twice removed or something like that. Well, whatever me and Tyler are, me and Nathan are like the same degree related because he and Tyler are actually cousins. I think their moms or sisters or something like that. I don't know. But at any rate, Nathan Ray, man, I think he came into the class like sixth, seventh grade, something like that. And you know, I gotta be honest. I derided him a little bit just for being a bit of a snob sometimes. And that was probably unfair because while yeah, his family was pretty well off and they had like a big house, but you know, and that kind of thing. But I sure didn't mind when he invited me over, and I sure had a good time hanging out in that big house. Uh, he never did anything to me really snobby. I mean, maybe other people, because I know he had a bit of a reputation on that, but not at all. The other thing that I really stands out to him, or about him to me, two things actually. One is just silly and kind of embarrassing, so I'm just going to say it. So we are flipping through Sports Illustrated circa 1994 together because that's what, you know, teenage boys do. And this was, you know, during, this is dating me, but coming up with my 40th birthday. So yeah, dating is myself is pretty much what I'm doing here. Figure skating, 94 Olympics, Nancy Kerrigan. And Nathan Ray had a crush on Nancy Kerrigan. I don't know why that's funny to me. It was funny to me back then. It's funny to me now. I don't know why. I mean, by all accounts, she's actually, you know, skater butts, tall, athletic, you know, she's by all objective accounts a beautiful woman. So it just makes sense that a teenage boy would be attracted to her. But because it was Nancy Kerrigan and the skating and oh my knee and you know wearing a medal at Disneyland with Mickey Mouse was such a corny thing, and just all of the soap opera drama, like to have a crush on Nancy Kerrigan still strikes me as funny. So I apologize, Nathan, but that's one of the first things I remember about you because that was, you know, that was about the time we first met and started to become friends. And that was one of the first things I found out about you was like, wow, you have a crush on Nancy Kerrigan. Let's see. He claimed to have caught me picking and eating my boogers in like seventh or eighth grade and tried telling the whole class. I don't know if that's possible. I mean, I do have the schnoz, and it's possible I was doing some of this, and you know I might have. I don't know. It was like in the middle of a test, is the thing about it. So it wasn't like you know we were doing something. It was like I'm trying to concentrate on a test, and suddenly I hear this commotion, and Nathan's like talking to people, and he's got like a note, and he's like showing it to everybody, and I was like, what is going on here? And to the credit of the rest of the class, no one was really heeding and pointing and laughing and paying a whole lot of attention. But the note that he had was a big green one. so, so I mean, the guy had a sense of humor as well. I remember us going to basketball camp. So me and Casey, we're going to basketball camp, and he was like, "Oh, I want to come too." So we went to NBC, and here's the thing: Casey, obviously, all-world athlete, you know, all-state and whatnot. But this was like eighth grade that we went, and I still remember this. We go to camp, and me and Nathan, who were like, yeah, you know, we like basketball, but we're not anything special, were at the appropriate age level. We're like with the 14-year-olds. Casey, for whatever reason, I think he like tripped and like in like the opening scrimmage or something and dribbled the ball out, and they thought, I don't know what they thought. They moved him down to play with like the 12 and 13-year-olds. He was all-star of that 13-year-old level. Like that probably launched his career. And somehow me and Nathan, who were like far, far inferior athletes, were competing at a level above at this camp. Just, anyways. Yeah, so I remember, and I don't know, like Nathan never struck me as like a huge basketball fan, um, but he went with us, and I think that was kind of like a, wanting to be part of our group a little bit. Which, looking back now on, I actually appreciate more than I did back then, and that's kind of a shame because Nathan is someone I probably should have been better friends with. When I kind of think about it, just in terms of personality and interest, um, he and I probably did make for a better match than we did. But for whatever reason, we just didn't seem to hang out all that much. Of course, I've said that about most of the people on this list. I spent a lot of time alone by myself, mostly by choice. I could have picked up the phone and called Nathan, and we might have been much better friends. At this point in time, I don't know. I'm assuming he took over the family business and everything is going swell. I do know he got married, and his wife is a psychologist, which is impressive to me. And I've never met her, but I've read a lot of her work because we were both working in the community mental health industry in Walla Walla, and so same circles, similar clients, got to see each other's notes. She probably thinks I'm an idiot and probably thinks I should be more of the patient than the counselor. But at any rate, so I think he's probably doing just fine for himself. Another thing that I remember about Nathan was that we had our we had our graduation party, and I said like he had kind of this big house. Like it was actually two houses because it was like they had like the first house that you could tell was like an old house, but it was like kind of your typical sort of farmhouse, and it had like an upstairs, downstairs, and whatnot. And then they just sort of built like a second house right next to it and connected it with a door. So it's like this like old classic house and then like a super modern house like right next door. And he like Nathan again is one of those people that he knew exactly what he was going to do. He was all into the family business, and they were agriculture and peas, alfalfa. I don't know exactly what they raised, but he'd invite me over, and he'd be so excited because he wanted me to go out, and work harvest and do stuff. And, harvest was like riding tractors and all this mechanized equipment stuff. And I mean, my grandpa was an onion farmer, but for me that meant like, going and picking onions or, sacking them or whatnot. And here they're doing like all this big agri-tech stuff. And he loved it. And it wasn't something that I ever got, my brain wrapped around or understood or was able to embrace. And I feel bad because that's, especially with like the growth of the wine industry and whatnot, like this was big business. And even when I remember my time at Washington State, even being like an advertising major, people would be like, oh, where are you from? Like I'd be talking to recruiters and stuff, and they'd be like, oh, you're from Walla Walla. Okay, you must know all about this agribusiness stuff. That's big business. And I knew nothing. And maybe if I had actually, given a little bit more interest and attention to, his passion and enjoyment of it that he was clearly trying to share with me. Like you wouldn't invite someone, to come out and see how we, how does our farm function? How do we operate? Unless you were, trying to share something that you were really interested in with somebody. And I feel kind of bad that I didn't give that more of an effort because one, it would have made us better friends. Two, I might have learned something that would have helped me in my life. But like I said, he sounds like he's doing quite well for himself. I think I've run into his mom once or twice. I don't think I've actually seen him except for at the funeral, which I will probably get to in a future post, one that I'll probably just type, right? Okay, I promise that. But yeah, for his part, Nathan was a good friend. I can think of all the times I remember we watched all of Hoop Dreams one night, I think for his birthday party. I can think of us like riding bikes down because they just happened to have a whole garage full of bikes. So it'd be like five of us hop on bikes and pedal on down half mile down to the creek and, exploring nature. Like we're in middle school and we're kind of like straddling that age between like, oh, we still like to go out and play in the fields and also being able like, hey, we can get in a car and drive and go do stuff that's grown up. And I just did not ever seem to match up on the same level with Nathan. That's a shame because I think about how when we first got together and it's like, oh, we're friends, and it turns out we're related and we're cousins and whatnot. And then I think about it, we both went to Washington State, probably there at the same time, and I didn't even realize it. So missed opportunity to possibly have had a some sort of lifelong friendship that I kind of flaked on. So Nathan, for everything that you did as a friend, I appreciate you. And I also apologize that I wasn't a better friend. All right. So by my calculations, uh, I think that's my class. Pretty sure. Anybody that I did not talk about specifically in this video, that's intentional because I'm planning to give you your own due in a later post, either with yourself or with others. Unless I just totally forgot about someone because it's been like a repressed memory or whatnot. And for that, I sincerely apologize. I'm sure you are well deserving of a lot of praise that I'm not heaping on you, and I'm so sorry. But by my calculations, I think I have like 15 people I've done here, and I think I have like 8 or 9, so that would get me to like 23, 24. So I think I'm right in there by what my thought process has always been, that there were 24 in my graduating class, because I think I was like number like 8 out of 24, which is like the top third. So hey, score one from me, 66 percentile. All right, well, this is probably, I'm gonna have to go back and look at it, but probably approaching, I don't know, like 3 hours worth of me talking. I can't believe I did this, but it's better than me trying to write this out and expect people to try to read it. So if you've listened to all of it, you're a saint. If you listened to any of it, I love you. I would like to get the word out about this one, right? Because I'm trying to give the due to a lot of people, right? I want to get the word out. So by all means, spread this if you're in the Walla Walla Catholic Schools community. Facebook like, share, text people, send it, in an email, what have you. I want to make sure that everybody, because like I said, it's been 20 years. Most of the people in here I haven't talked to in 20 years. I would like them to know that I still remember them, or maybe people that I don't remember will find out that I don't remember them. But at least I'm being honest. All right.